What a horrifying moment when the impoverished nanny, who had only just stepped foot into the most luxurious penthouse in the city, suddenly caught a faint, strange smell coming from the plate of bright red jam placed in front of the 8-year-old little girl. Just one tiny bite and the child would turn purple, gasp for air, and die within minutes from anaphylactic shock because the little girl had a life-threatening peanut allergy, something the entire household knew all too well. But today, someone had deliberately mixed a small amount of refined peanut powder into the jar of jam, meant only for her odorless, almost tasteless enough to kill a child without anyone being able to save her in time. The nanny snatched the plate away from the little girl's hand just before the spoon touched her lips, her heart pounding as she realized this was no accident. The enemy was hiding right inside this very house, ready to strike at an innocent child just to seize billions of dollars in inheritance. And that enemy was the closest blood relative of the master of the house, the powerful, ice-cold man, who was now looking at her with eyes burning with a fierce, possessive love that bordered on madness, yet was also deadly, dangerous. Could a woman who once went hungry so her own child could have milk now find the courage to protect 3 innocent children while invisible knives hovered at their throats? Or would the blazing, obsessive flame of love between her and the most dangerous man in the city drag them all into an abyss, filled with blood and tears? Step into this breathless story of scorching passion and lurking peril right now. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Alex Truths and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions, or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. Alright, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. Emily Carter's hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel of her old, rusted Ford Focus, the engine sputtering in the cold October wind, sweeping across the cracked parking lot of her tiny apartment building in southern Illinois. It was late October of the year 2025, and the chill bit through her thin coat, the kind of cold that seeped into her bones after too many nights spent huddled under threadbare blankets. At 26, Emily looked older, her fair skin pale and drawn cheeks hollow from months of skipping meals to stretch what little money she had. Her dark hair hung limp, unwashed for days because hot water was a luxury she rationed. She was thin, almost fragile, her body worn from exhaustion and worry. Her 4-year-old son Jackson slept fitfully in the back seat, wrapped in the only warm blanket they owned, his small chest rising and falling with the shallow, wheezing breaths that had become all too familiar. Asthma. The doctors at the county clinic had diagnosed it last year, but without steady insurance, every inhaler cost hundreds of dollars, money Emily simply did not have. She worked double shifts as a kindergarten teacher in the local public school, earning barely enough to cover rent on their one-room apartment and the cheapest generic medications. Some nights when Jackson's attacks worsened, she drove him to the emergency room praying they would treat him without turning them away. The bills piled up like snowdrifts, threatening to bury them both. Emily's life had been a string of unfair blows. Her parents had died in a factory accident when she was 19, leaving her alone to raise her younger siblings until they aged out. Then came Jackson's father, a fleeting mistake who vanished the moment the pregnancy test turned positive. No child support, no help. Just her scraping by in one of the poorest counties in Illinois, where jobs were scarce and hope even scarcer. She had lost weight she could not afford to lose, her eyes ringed with dark circles from sleepless nights listening to Jackson cough. Some evenings she sat in the dark to save on electricity, tears streaming silently, as she wondered how much longer they could hold on. That morning, everything changed with a phone call. Mrs. Harlan, the stern estate manager for Alexander Harlan's household, had summoned her to a discreet meeting in a nearby diner. Emily had answered an anonymous online ad weeks earlier out of sheer desperation. A live-in tutoring position for 2 young girls paying 3 times her teaching salary with room and board included. She had applied on a whim, never expecting a response. Now sitting in the diner booth, Emily clutched a cup of weak coffee, her voice soft and timid as she spoke to the older woman. "Ma'am, I don't understand why me. I'm just a teacher. I have my son, he's sick, and I can't afford to leave him." Mrs. Harlan's face remained impassive, her eyes sharp. "Mr. Harlan needs someone reliable for his daughters. The previous tutor left suddenly. You're qualified, and you have no ties that would complicate things. No husband, no extended family nearby. And we know about your boy's condition. The position includes medical benefits for you and any dependents." Emily's heart stuttered. Medical benefits, inhalers, doctor visits without drowning in debt. Jackson could breathe easier, But Alexander Harlan, the name sent a shiver through her. Everyone in Illinois whispered about him, the powerful businessman who controlled vast interests in shipping real estate and things no one discussed openly. Rumors of rival disputes, tense confrontations in the streets of Chicago. He was wealthy beyond imagination, fair-skinned with piercing blue eyes, a man whose name alone commanded respect and fear. I accept, Emily whispered, her voice cracking. She thought of Jackson's latest attack, how she had held him through the night helpless. This job was salvation or a trap, but for her son she would risk it. Mrs. Harlan nodded. Your things will be moved today. You'll start immediately. The penthouse is on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago's Gold Coast. Keep your head down, do your work, and stay out of Mr. Harlan's business. That's how you survive in his world. Emily drove back to pack their few belongings. A duffel bag of worn clothes, Jackson's stuffed bald eagle toy, a handful of children's books. As she loaded the car, a wave of dizziness hit her, hunger, fear, exhaustion crashing together. The world tilted and she gripped the door for balance, pain shooting through her numb fingers. This was her chance, but stepping into Alexander Harlan's world felt like leaping into an abyss. The drive north to Chicago took hours, the skyline growing taller, more intimidating. Lakeshore Drive gleamed with luxury cars, the lake sparkling under gray skies. The Gold Coast neighborhood unfolded like a dream, historic mansions with ornate facades, rows of elegant graystones and high-rises overlooking Lake Michigan, designer boutiques lining the streets. It was a world of wealth Emily had only seen in magazines. The Harlan residence was a sprawling penthouse atop one of the most exclusive buildings, spanning multiple floors with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city and lake. Security guards in crisp suits nodded as she entered the private elevator, her heart pounding. The doors opened to marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and walls adorned with tasteful art. The air smelled of fresh flowers and polished wood, nothing like the musty dampness of her old apartment. Mrs. Harlan led her through hushed corridors. The lower levels are for staff and business. The top floors are private Mr. Harlan's offices and the family suites. You'll have a room adjoining the girls' play area. Emily's belongings had already arrived, neatly unpacked. Her new uniform, a simple but elegant black skirt and white blouse, hung in the closet. Jackson would stay with a neighbor for a trial week, but soon he could join if things worked out. As evening fell, Emily stood in the girls' wing, a warm space, surprisingly child-friendly amid the luxury soft cream walls. Toys scattered on thick rugs, picture books open on low tables. Sunlight faded through large windows, casting golden hues. It was beautiful, almost unreal. A small voice broke the silence. You're going to leave too. Everyone leaves. Emily turned startled. A girl stood in the shadows. Lily Harlan, 8 years old, small for her age, with guarded blue eyes that seemed far too old. She held herself stiffly, like someone braced for disappointment. Emily knelt slowly, her voice soft and polite. Hi, sweetheart. My name is Emily Carter. I'm here to help with your schoolwork and to take care of you and your sister. Lily's gaze was wary. The last one said that. Then she was gone. Before Emily could respond, a joyful blur rushed in, Grace, 5 years old, crashing into Emily's legs with a hug. Her brown eyes sparkled with hope as she clutched a worn, stuffed bald eagle. Are you staying? Daddy says we're too much trouble, so no one stays. Emily's heart ached sharply. She looked from Grace's innocent face to Lily's armored one, and felt an overwhelming surge of protectiveness. These girls were hurting just like Jackson. Like her. She knelt lower, gathering Grace gently. I don't know what the others said, but I promise I won't leave you. The words slipped out unbidden, born of her own desperate need to believe in promises. Grace squealed and hugged her neck. Lily, she promised. Lily's shoulders softened a fraction, but the wall remained. Mom promised too, she said flatly. Then she turned and closed her bedroom door. Emily stayed kneeling, Grace in her arms, a question burning. What had happened to their mother? She did not yet know the tragedy hidden in those words. Later that night, in her small but comfortable room, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The penthouse was silent except for distant city hum and security patrols. She thought of Jackson, safe for now, but needing her. She thought of the luxury surrounding her, the soft bed, the warmth, and felt a confusing numbness. This wealth was intoxicating, terrifying. Then came muffled sobs through the wall, Lily crying in her sleep. Emily rose instinctively, slipping into the girl's room. Lily thrashed, whispering, "Mommy, no." Emily sat gently on the bed, touching her shoulder. "It's okay, honey. You're safe." Lily woke with a start, eyes wide in panic, then rebuilding her defenses. "I'm fine. Go away." But Emily stayed patient. And slowly, in the dim light, Lily whispered about the night her mother died, shielding her from danger gone in an instant. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she listened, holding the breaking child. Outside the door, unseen, Alexander Harlan stood in shadows, watching. In his blue eyes flickered something new: guilt, remorse, a violent inner conflict tearing at the man who had everything yet protected so little. For the first time in years, Alex Harlan felt a surge not of power, but of something fierce, protective, overwhelming. Toward this poor, resilient woman holding his daughter. It terrified him. It consumed him. The first full week in the Harlan penthouse passed like a dream Emily Carter could not quite trust. October light streamed through the tall windows of the girls' playroom, painting warm gold across the thick plush rug and the scattered toys that cost more than her monthly rent back home. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, helping Grace stack colorful wooden blocks into a wobbly tower, while Lily watched from the corner armchair, knees drawn to her chest, blue eyes wary and measuring. Grace, only 5, laughed brightly each time the tower grew taller, her small voice echoing in the vast space. "Higher, Miss Emily. Make it touch the sky." Emily smiled softly, her voice gentle and timid. "We'll try, sweetheart. One more block, careful now." Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the piece. Hunger gnawed at her again. She had skipped breakfast to save the fresh fruit for the girls. Back in her old life, skipping meals was routine: ramen packets stretched over days, peanut butter sandwiches when the food pantry ran low. Here the kitchen downstairs brimmed with food she was allowed to take, yet shame still coiled in her stomach. She felt like an intruder, afraid someone would notice how desperately she needed every bite. Lily spoke suddenly, her tone flat and practiced. "It's going to fall. They always fall." Emily turned, meeting the older girl's gaze. "Maybe, but we can build it again. That's what matters." Lily's shoulders lifted in a tiny shrug, but something flickered in her eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or the faintest crack in the armor. That afternoon, Emily took the girls to the private rooftop garden, an expanse of manicured grass, raised flower beds bursting with late-season mums, and a view of Lake Michigan that stole her breath. Grace ran ahead, clutching her stuffed bald eagle, while Lily trailed behind, hands in the pockets of her designer sweater. Emily's own coat was the thin one from home, inadequate against the October wind, whipping off the water. She shivered, arms wrapped around herself, but refused to complain. Grace tugged her sleeve. "Can we play catch?" Emily hesitated. Her body ached from exhaustion, legs unsteady, but she nodded. "Of course." They tossed a soft baseball back and forth, Grace's giggles rising like birds. Lily watched from the bench, refusing to join until Emily softly asked, "Would you like a turn, Lily?" The 8-year-old stood, slowly walked over, and caught the ball with surprising grace. For a moment, the three of them formed a quiet triangle under the wide Chicago sky, the city's distant hum the only sound. Emily's heart swelled, painfully confused, fearful yet fiercely protective. These girls were not hers, yet she already loved them with an intensity that frightened her. That night, after tucking Grace into bed with a story about Babe Ruth and the called shot, Emily heard muffled crying through the shared wall. She slipped into Lily's room, the hallway carpet plush beneath her bare feet, a luxury that still felt wrong. Lily lay curled, tight blanket pulled over her head, small body shaking. Nightmares again. Emily sat carefully on the edge of the bed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lily, honey, it's me. You're safe." The girl stiffened, then slowly lowered the blanket. Tears streaked her pale cheeks. Her blue eyes, so like her father's, were wide with leftover terror. "I dreamed about Mommy," she whispered. "The car, the loud noise. She pushed me down and then she was gone." Emily's throat closed. She reached out hesitant and brushed damp hair from Lily's forehead. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." Lily's voice cracked. She promised she'd come back for ice cream. She promised. The unfairness of it tore at Emily like claws. A mother gone, 2 little girls left in a world too big and cold. She thought of Jackson alone with the neighbor tonight, wheezing through another attack she could not afford to treat properly. Tears burned her own eyes. Without thinking, Emily began to sing an old lullaby her grandmother had hummed on stormy nights in southern Illinois. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." Her voice was soft, trembling, but steady enough. Lily's sobs quieted. Slowly, miraculously, the child shifted closer, until her head rested against Emily's side. Emily wrapped an arm around her, holding the trembling girl as if she were her own. In the dim glow of the nightlight shaped like a baseball, they stayed like that until Lily's breathing evened into sleep. Emily did not see the shadow in the doorway. Alexander Harlan stood motionless back, pressed to the wall, blue eyes fixed on the scene. His broad shoulders were rigid beneath the tailored black suit, jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Guilt crashed over him in waves, gnawing, consuming, violent. Sarah had died because of him, because of the enemies his power drew. He had failed to protect her, failed his daughters. And now this woman, this thin, malnourished stranger with hollow cheeks and exhausted eyes, was giving his children the comfort he could not. Something fierce and overwhelming surged in his chest. Not mere gratitude. Not simple attraction. It was deeper, hotter, terrifying in its intensity. Love's sudden burning, all-consuming from the first moment he had watched her kneel to Grace's height and promise not to leave. He wanted to shield her from every cold night she had endured, every skipped meal, every unfair blow life had dealt her. Yet he was the most dangerous man she could ever stand beside. His hands clenched into fists. He was poison. He destroyed what he loved. But the thought of her leaving, of those gentle hands no longer reaching for his daughters, tore something vital inside him. He turned away silently, torment raging behind his controlled exterior. The next morning, Emily woke to Grace, bouncing on her bed, laughing about pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. Downstairs in the sunlit kitchen, the private chef had prepared a spread that made Emily's stomach twist with humiliated hunger. Stacks of pancakes, fresh berries, bacon eggs, orange juice in crystal glasses. She served the girls first, her own plate, small, afraid to take too much. When Alexander appeared in the doorway, tall, fair-skinned, immaculate in a charcoal suit, Emily froze fork halfway to her mouth. His presence filled the room like a storm front. Grace squealed and ran to him. "Daddy." He bent fluidly, lifting her with a tenderness that belied his reputation, kissing her forehead. "Morning, princess." "Been good." Lily approached more slowly, but he ruffled her hair gently. Then his gaze settled on Emily. Blue eyes met hers, piercing, unreadable, yet burning, with something that made her breath catch. Heat flooded her cheeks. Dizziness swept through her, and she gripped the table edge to steady herself. "You're the new tutor," he said, voice low and smooth. It was not a question. "Yes, sir," Emily answered, soft and polite, looking down. "Emily Carter." He stepped closer, close enough for her to smell expensive cologne and the faint trace of city air. "Mrs. Harlan says you're good with them." I'm trying, sir." His gaze swept over her, taking in the thin wrists, the shadows under her eyes, the way she sat slightly hunched, as if expecting criticism. Something darkened in his expression. "Eat," he said quietly. It was almost a command, yet laced with something gentler. "You'll need your strength for my daughters." Emily nodded, throat tight, and took a small bite under his watchful eyes. Later that day, as Emily walked the girls to the building's private park, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb. 3 men in dark jackets stepped out, rival factions, she realized with a jolt of fear, recognizing the tension from whispered news reports. Alexander appeared as if from nowhere, flanked by 2 bodyguards. His posture shifted, lethal, controlled power radiating from him. "Take the girls inside," he told Emily, voice calm but edged with steel. Her heart hammered. She scooped Grace up, grasped Lily's hand, and hurried back, legs shaking. Through the lobby windows, she watched Alexander facing the men without flinching, words sharp and low. One rival gestured aggressively, but Alexander's presence alone seemed to force retreat. The SUV peeled away. When he returned minutes later, suit untouched, expression granite, Emily waited in the foyer, girls safely upstairs. "Are you all right, sir?" she asked timidly. He looked at her, really looked, and the storm in his blue eyes softened for a heartbeat. "Yes. Thank you for getting them inside quickly." The gratitude in his voice undid her. Tears pricked unexpectedly. She blinked them back, overwhelmed by the contrast, his power shielding them while she remained powerless, poor dependent. That night, as Emily sang both girls to sleep, Alexander stood unseen again in the hallway, hand pressed to the wall as if to steady himself. The surge of love terrified him, passionate, impossible, violent in its demand to protect her claim, her keep her safe from the world that included him. Emily, lying awake later in her luxurious bed, felt the same tearing confusion. She was nothing. A broke single mother teetering on ruin. Yet in this house of impossible wealth, 2 little girls were beginning to reach for her, and their powerful, tormented father looked at her as though she were something precious. The disparity numbed her, the fear thrilled her. And deep inside, a tiny, impossible spark of hope flickered, dangerous, warm, and growing. The late October sun hung low over Lake Michigan, turning the water into a sheet of hammered gold, as Emily stood at the playroom window watching Grace chase falling leaves on the rooftop garden below. Lily sat nearby at a low table, coloring with the kind of crayons that came in boxes of 64 shades, crayons Emily had only dreamed of as a child. The girls had eaten a full lunch, grilled cheese on artisan bread, tomato soup, apple slices arranged like flowers. Emily had managed a few bites herself, but the old habit of rationing clung to her. She wrapped the rest in a napkin for later, ashamed of the instinct. A soft chime sounded from the private elevator. Emily's heart gave an unsteady lurch. Mrs. Harlan had warned her. Mr. Harlan sometimes came home unexpectedly. Grace heard it too. "Daddy," she squealed, dropping her stuffed bald eagle and racing toward the hall. Emily smoothed her simple black skirt, suddenly conscious of how thin she looked in it, how the fabric hung on bones that had known too many lean winters. She followed more slowly, pulse fluttering like a trapped bird. Alexander Harlan stepped into the family wing, as though the very air parted for him. Tall, broad-shouldered, fair-skinned, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than Emily earned in a year. His blue eyes' sharp winter cold swept the room, softening only when they landed on his daughters. Grace launched herself at his legs. Alex bent smoothly, lifting her high, the movement effortless, despite his size. He pressed a kiss to her curls. "Hey, little one. Good day. The best Miss Emily read us 3 stories and we made a fort." Lily approached more cautiously, but Alex crouched to her level, one large hand cupping the back of her head. "And you, Lil." Staying out of trouble, Lily gave a small nod, a ghost of a smile touching her mouth. "We learned about the American Revolution today." Alex's gaze lifted, then finding Emily across the room. Time slowed. The city noise faded. Emily felt suddenly exposed, as if those piercing blue eyes could see every skipped meal, every sleepless night spent counting pennies, every tear shed over Jackson's wheezing breaths. Heat rushed to her cheeks. Her knees weakened, and she gripped the back of a chair to stay upright. A wave of dizziness washed over her hunger nerves. The sheer, overwhelming size of this man and the world he commanded. "You're Miss Carter," he said, voice low, smooth as expensive whiskey. It was not a question. Emily swallowed. "Yes, sir. Emily Carter." He set Grace down gently and crossed the room in measured strides. Up close, he was even more imposing. Broad chest, strong jaw, shadowed with the faintest stubble cologne, subtle and costly. Yet there was exhaustion in the faint lines around his eyes, a heaviness he carried like an invisible weight. He stopped an arm's length away. "The girls seem happy." The simple statement undid something inside her. Happy. She had given them that, even for a moment. Tears threatened. She blinked them back fiercely. "I'm glad, sir," she whispered, voice soft and polite. "They're wonderful children." Alex studied her, taking in the hollows beneath her cheekbones, the tremor in her hands, the way she stood, slightly hunched, as if expecting rebuke. Something dark and tormented flashed across his face. "Call me Alex," he said quietly. "At least when it's just family." Family. The word struck her like a blow. She had no family left, only Jackson struggling to breathe in a cramped apartment hours away. She nodded mutely, afraid her voice would crack. Grace tugged Alex's hand. "Daddy, come see our fort." He allowed himself to be led, but his gaze lingered on Emily a moment longer, intense, searching, almost pained. That evening, after the girls were asleep, Emily slipped downstairs to the staff kitchen for water. The main kitchen was too grand, too intimidating. She moved quietly, barefoot on cool marble, wearing an oversized sweatshirt that had once belonged to Jackson's father, threadbare now but warm. She did not expect to find Alex there. He stood at the massive island sleeves rolled up, pouring a glass of milk. A plate of chocolate chip cookies sat nearby, freshly baked, the scent filling the air. He looked up as she froze in the doorway. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. Emily shook her head, throat tight. "Just thirsty, sir, Alex." He gestured to the cookies. "Help yourself." Cook made too many. Her stomach twisted with humiliating hunger. She had not eaten since lunch, but pride warred with need. Finally, she took one cookie, small and careful. "Thank you." Alex watched her bite into it, eyes darkening. "When was the last time you ate a full meal, Emily?" The directness shocked her. Tears welled instantly. She turned away, mortified. "I'm fine." "You're not," he said, voice rough. "You're half-starved." The kindness in his tone broke her. A sob escaped before she could stop it. She pressed a hand to her mouth, shoulders shaking. In 2 strides he was beside her, not touching but close enough she felt his warmth. "I'm sorry," he said low and fierce. "I didn't mean to." "No, it's not you," she whispered. "It's everything. Jackson, my son, he's sick, and I can't. I couldn't." The words tumbled out, years of desperation spilling over. "I've been so scared. Some nights we had nothing but oatmeal. I skipped meals so he could eat. The heat got shut off twice last winter. I thought we'd lose the apartment. And now I'm here, and it's all so much, and I don't belong." Alex's jaw clenched, torment raging in his eyes. Guilt crashed over him anew, guilt for Sarah's death, for the danger his life brought, for the luxury he took for granted while women like Emily suffered in silence. And beneath it, that burning surge grew stronger, a fierce, possessive need to shield her, feed her, keep her safe from every cold night she had ever endured. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The touch was feather-light, yet it seared them both. "You belong here now," he said, voice raw. "You and Jackson both." Emily looked up, eyes wide and shimmering. The intensity in his gaze stole her breath. For a moment the kitchen faded, there was only this powerful, tormented man looking at her as though she were something infinitely precious. Then reality intruded. A phone buzzed on the counter. Alex glanced at it, expression hardening instantly. Trouble? She asked timidly. Rivals, he said curtly, trying to push into my territory. Fear spiked through her. Will you be safe? The question seemed to surprise him. No one asked Alexander Harlan if he would be safe. I'll handle it, he said. But his eyes lingered on her, conflicted. Minutes later, Emily watched from an upper window as Alex strode out the private entrance. 2 black SUVs waited. Across the street, another vehicle idled, men in dark jackets watching. A tense standoff unfolded. Words exchanged, postures aggressive. But Alex's presence alone forced the others back. Engines revved. The rivals retreated. He returned 20 minutes later, suit jacket slung over one arm, expression thunderous. Emily met him in the foyer, unable to stop herself. Are you hurt? He stopped staring at her, as if memorizing her worried face. No. Relief flooded her, dizzying and disproportionate. She swayed slightly. He caught her elbow to steady her. You need rest, he said quietly. And food. Tomorrow you'll eat proper meals, no arguments. The command was gentle, laced with something deeper. Emily nodded, tears rising again at the simple care. That night Alex stood outside the girls' rooms long after they slept, hand pressed to the wall. Remorse tore at him, Sarah gone because of his enemies. His daughters wounded, and now this fragile woman, poor, proud, heartbreakingly kind, walking straight into the same danger. Yet the love that had ignited the moment he saw her holding Lily now burned hotter, violent in its demand. He wanted to give her everything, safety, warmth, a life without fear. But he was the greatest threat of all. Inside her room, Emily lay awake in the softest bed she had ever known, tears sliding silently into the pillow. The cookie still lingered on her tongue, sweet, impossible. Alexander Harlan had looked at her with eyes full of torment, and something that felt dangerously like devotion. She, a broke, powerless single mother, was suddenly the focus of a wealthy, powerful man's intense gaze. The disparity numbed her mind. Terror and longing warred in her chest. She pressed a hand over her racing heart, whispering a prayer that this fragile new world would not shatter, and fearing deep down that it already had. October deepened in Chicago, the wind turning sharper off the lake, carrying the first hints of winter. Emily Carter stood at the playroom window one gray afternoon, watching rain streak the glass, while Grace napped, and Lily worked quietly on a puzzle of the American flag. The penthouse was warm, heated, floors thick walls, muffling the storm, but Emily still felt the old chill in her bones. The memory of nights when the heat had been shut off, and she and Jackson huddled under every blanket they owned. She had gained a few pounds in the weeks here, her cheeks less hollow, but the shame of past hunger lingered. Some mornings she woke expecting eviction notices, expecting the phone to ring with bad news about Jackson's latest bill. Instead, she woke to luxury that felt borrowed, temporary, unfair. That evening, after reading to the girls, Emily heard the familiar sound. Lily's muffled sobs through the wall. She slipped into the child's room without hesitation, now the carpet soft under her feet. Lily was curled tight again, face buried in her pillow. It was the dream she whispered when Emily sat beside her. Mommy's car. The big boom. She told me to run, but I couldn't move. Emily's heart fractured. She gathered Lily close, the girl's small body trembling against her own thin frame. It wasn't your fault, sweetheart. Your mommy loved you so much she protected you. That's what mothers do. Lily clung harder. Why did she have to go? Emily had no answer, only tears of her own. She began the lullaby again. You are my sunshine, her voice soft, cracking on the high notes. Lily's sobs slowly quieted, her breathing evening out against Emily's shoulder. Emily stayed long after the child slept, stroking dark hair, staring into the dim glow of the baseball-shaped nightlight. She thought of her own mother, lost too young of nights spent alone with unpaid bills and a wheezing baby. The unfairness rose like bile. Why did some children lose everything, while others lived in penthouses overlooking the city? She did not hear the door ease open. Alexander Harlan stood in the shadows of the hallway, one hand braced against the frame as though it alone kept him upright. He had come home late again, suit rumpled from another tense street confrontation, rival men blocking a shipment on the south side, words turning heated until his presence forced them back. Danger circled him constantly, a reminder of the blood on his ledger. Watching Emily hold his grieving daughter, something inside him shattered further. Guilt clawed deeper, Sarah gone because of his enemies, his girls wounded because of his power. And now this woman, poor, proud, heartbreakingly gentle, was pouring love into the voids he could not fill. The surge that had begun weeks ago now raged like wildfire. Love, raw, passionate, impossible, burned through every defense. He wanted to carry her away from every memory of cold nights, every skipped meal, every tear shed in darkness. Yet he was the reason mothers died, the reason children had nightmares. Touching her would only bring her ruin. His fists clenched until knuckles whitened. He turned away silently, torment carving deeper lines into his face. The next day brought an unexpected gift. A package arrived for Emily, delivered personally by Mrs. Harlan with a terse. From Mr. Harlan. Inside a thick winter coat, soft as butter lined with fleece, warm boots, gloves, a scarf, all in her size, and a smaller box for Jackson new inhalers, a pediatric nebulizer, children's cold medicine, a note in bold masculine handwriting, for you and your son. No more cold nights. Emily stared at the gifts in the staff lounge, tears falling before she could stop them. The coat alone cost more than her monthly salary teaching. She slipped it on the warmth enveloping her like arms and sobbed quietly into the collar. No one had ever. She found Alex later in his private study, a room of dark wood, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace crackling. He stood at the window, city lights glittering below a glass of amber liquid in his hand. "Sir Alex," she corrected softly, voice timid. "The coat. The medicine for Jackson." "I can't accept you will," he said without turning, voice low. "I won't have you or that boy suffering while you're under my roof." The kindness, sharp, almost angry, undid her. She stepped closer, clutching the thank you note she had written. "No one's ever done anything like this for us. I don't know how to repay." He turned then, blue eyes fierce. "You don't repay. You just stay. Keep doing what you're doing for my girls." The air thickened. Emily felt dizziness sweep her again. His nearness, the scent of cologne and fireplace smoke, the intensity radiating from him. Her knees weakened. She caught the edge of a chair. Alex moved instantly, hand steadying her elbow. "When did you last eat?" She flushed, humiliated. "Lunch, I think." He guided her to a leather sofa, pressed a button on an intercom. Minutes later, a tray arrived, warm soup, crusty bread, sliced fruit. He sat opposite, watching until she ate. Between bites, words spilled her parents' accident raising siblings alone, Jackson's father abandoning them the night she went to bed hungry so her son could have milk. Each confession tore at her pride, but his silent attention encouraged more. Alex listened, jaw-tight remorse and rage warring inside him. Every story of her suffering was an indictment of a world he helped make dangerous. Yet her resilience, quiet, uncomplaining, ignited his love further, a violent, consuming flame. When she finished, voice fading, he leaned forward. "You'll never go hungry again. Neither will Jackson. I swear it." The vow hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Emily's eyes filled. "Why are you so kind to me? Because I love you," he thought, the words burning his throat. "Because you're saving my daughters when I can't. Because you deserve everything I can give and I'm terrified I'll destroy you." Instead, he said, "Because you deserve it." Later that night, another confrontation erupted. Emily watched from the balcony as Alex's motorcade returned, tires screeching, rival vehicles boxing them in on Lakeshore Drive. Shouts echoed up. Alex stepped out alone, posture lethal calm, facing down armed men. Words were exchanged, sharp, threatening, but his authority forced retreat. The rivals drove off. He entered the penthouse minutes later, tension coiled in every line. Emily waited in the foyer, wrapped in the new coat, heart pounding. "You shouldn't have to do that," she whispered. "It's my world," he said roughly. Then softer, "But not yours. Not anymore." Their eyes locked. The space between them crackled. Emily felt the pull magnetic, terrifying. A man who commanded fear in others looked at her with raw, desperate tenderness. Alex took one step closer, then stopped, fists clenched. The inner war raged. Take her in his arms or push her away to safety. Love won a small victory. He reached out, tucking a stray curl behind her ear, thumb brushing her cheek. Emily trembled, tears spilling. No one had touched her gently in years. In that quiet moment, something shifted irrevocably. Suspicion melted into overwhelming trust. Fear into aching need. For Alex, the burning surge became a vow. He would protect her, love her even if it cost him everything. Neither spoke. The fireplace crackled in the distance. Outside, Chicago glittered indifferently. Inside, two wounded souls stood on the edge of something fierce and fragile, hearts tearing wider with every shared breath. The last days of October brought a chill that seeped through even the thick glass of the penthouse windows. Emily stood in the kitchen one morning, helping Grace butter toast, while Lily carefully poured orange juice into crystal glasses. The girls wore matching sweaters, soft cashmere, new and warm. Emily's own new coat hung by the door, a constant reminder of Alex's quiet generosity. Jackson had arrived the day before, wide-eyed at the vast rooms, clutching his nebulizer like a treasure. For the first time in months, Emily had slept without fear of the next bill. Yet peace felt fragile, like thin ice over deep water. Mrs. Harlan appeared at the doorway, face tighter than usual. "Family dinner tonight. Downstairs in the main dining room." "You'll serve." Emily blinked, confusion flickering. "I thought I was only for the girls, ma'am. Tonight you do both. Mr. Harlan's brother is coming." The word brother sent an unexplained shiver through her. "Mrs. Harlan's eyes held warning. Keep your head down. Pour when glasses are low. Speak only if spoken to. Emily nodded, a knot forming in her stomach. At 7 that evening, she stood in the grand dining room, a space she had never entered before. Crystal chandelier glittering overhead, long mahogany table set with china and silver that gleamed like stars. Portraits of stern-faced Harlan ancestors lined the walls. The girls sat beside their father, dressed in pretty dresses, looking small against the vast table. Alex sat at the head, black suit, impeccable, but tension radiated from him, jaw tight, shoulders rigid. His blue eyes flicked to Emily as she entered with the wine, a brief flash of something protective, almost possessive. Then the doors opened. Victor Harlan strode in like he owned the air itself. Taller than Alex by an inch, same fair skin and sharp features, but everything else felt wrong. His smile was wide, perfect teeth flashing, yet it never reached his dark eyes. Hair slicked back, gray three-piece suit tailored to perfection. He spread his arms. Little brother, been too long. Alex did not rise. Victor greeted the girls with theatrical warmth, ruffling Grace's curls, calling Lily big girl now. Grace shrank closer to Alex. Lily stared with weary recognition. Emily stood in the corner, wine bottle in hand, trying to become invisible. But Victor's gaze slid over her, paused, returned. A slow sound of interest escaped him as he sat opposite Alex. Pretty addition to the staff, he said lightly. Where'd you find her? Alex's voice was ice. She cares for my daughters. Not your concern. Victor laughed softly, edge hidden beneath. Everything in this house is my concern, Alex. Family remember dinner unfolded in strained silence, broken only by silverware. Emily poured wine, hands steady through sheer will, feeling the toxic current between the brothers. Mid-meal, Victor set down his fork. Heard you're pulling out of the Southside deal. Alex's gaze lifted cold. I decided. You can't decide alone, Victor said, mildly steel underneath. It's family money, family territory. It's drugs, Alex answered. We don't touch them. Never have. Victor tilted his head, smile chilling. Father said a lot of things. Father isn't here anymore, is he? Don't let the kids make you soft, little brother. Alex's fingers tightened on his glass until knuckles paled. Remember who sits at the head of this table? Victor leaned back. Oh, I remember. Every day. The air suffocated. Emily cleared plates with trembling hands, grateful when Mrs. Harlan took the girls upstairs early. Victor rose last, buttoning his vest. As he passed Emily, he stopped. Your name, she swallowed. Emily Carter, sir. Beautiful name, he said, tasting it. Take good care of my nieces. They're valuable. He walked away, but paused at the door, looking back with a gaze that froze her blood, calculating, placing her on an invisible board. Only when he vanished did Emily breathe. She turned and found Alex watching her, blue eyes stormy with worry. Stay away from him, he said low. Never be alone with Victor. She nodded, throat tight, unnecessary questions dying on her lips. She had seen enough in those dark eyes. Later in the shadowed hallway, Mrs. Harlan drew her aside where no cameras reached. What did you do to make Mr. Victor notice you? The older woman whispered, face pale. Nothing, ma'am. I only served. And yet he asked your name. Mrs. Harlan sighed, fear etched deep. Be careful. Victor doesn't like anyone close to Alex or the girls. Emily's heart skipped. Why, Mrs.? Harlan glanced around, voice dropping to a thread. He was supposed to inherit. Everyone knew it. Father trained him from childhood. Then right before he died, the old man changed his mind. Said Victor was too cruel. No limits. Said a leader needs to know when to stop. And Victor never does. Emily shivered. So he hates Alex, Mrs. Harlan gave a humorless laugh. Victor doesn't hate. He waits. He calculates. Like a snake. She paused, eyes dropping. And some whisper, Sarah's death wasn't rivals. But that's only talk. Say nothing. Ask nothing. Just keep the girls safe and yourself. Mrs. Harlan slipped away, leaving Emily in the dim corridor, pieces clicking horribly together. Victor wanted power. Alex stood in his way. If Alex fell, the girls would inherit children too young to lead. Victor would control everything as guardian. If the girls were gone too. Emily's knees buckled. She pressed a hand to the wall, dizziness crashing over her. Nausea rose at the unfairness. 2 innocent little girls, her own Jackson, now under this roof. All potential pawns in a merciless game. That same night, trouble found Alex again. Emily watched from the upper balcony as he left the building motorcade, pulling out only to be blocked by 2 dark sedans on the street below. Victor's men, she realized with horror. Alex stepped out alone, bodyguards flanking but held back by his raised hand. Words were sharp postures, threatening. One rival gestured aggressively toward the penthouse toward them. Alex's response was quiet, lethal calm. The men backed down, cars peeling away. He returned minutes later, tension coiled tight. Emily waited in the private elevator hall, unable to stay away. "You're shaking," he said, noticing her hands. "So are you," she whispered. He looked surprised, then gave a grim half-smile. "Comes with the territory." But his eyes searched, hers tormented. "Did Victor say something to you?" She shook her head, afraid to burden him. Yet the fear spilled. "He scares me." Alex stepped closer, close enough she felt his warmth. "He won't touch you. Or the girls. Or Jackson. I swear it." The vow was fierce, almost desperate. Emily's eyes filled. "Why does it feel like everything good gets taken away? Because I take it," he thought, guilt and love warring violently. "Because my world destroys beauty." Instead, he cupped her cheek gently, first real touch since the study. Not this time. Thunder rumbled outside. Emily leaned into his palm without thinking, tears slipping free. For a heartbeat, the storm paused, two souls standing in quiet, condensed stillness, hearts tearing wider with unspoken promises. Then his phone buzzed again. Another threat. He released her, slowly, torment etched deeper. As he walked away, Emily wrapped arms around herself, the new coat suddenly not warm enough. Poverty had been cruel, but this new fear was sharper. Fear of losing the fragile safety, the overwhelming care, the burning gaze of a man who looked at her like salvation and damnation both. Victor's shadow lengthened. The unfairness of it all pressed down, numbing and violent. Emily pressed a hand over her racing heart, whispering a silent plea that the light just beginning to warm her frozen world would not be snatched away. November crept closer, the Chicago wind turning cruel as it whipped between the skyscrapers. Emily Carter stood in the playroom one crisp morning watching Grace play with a new set of building toys that had appeared outside the door overnight. Bright plastic pieces, shaped like stars and rockets. The kind of set that cost more than a week's groceries in her old life. Grace, delighted, picked up a red star and brought it to her mouth the way little ones sometimes do. Instinct made Emily snatch it away gently. "Wait, sweetheart. Let me check first." She examined the hollow piece and felt her heart plummet. Inside, barely visible through the clear plastic, glinted a tiny shard of glass sharp enough to cut, small enough to swallow unnoticed. Her hands shook as she checked the rest. 2 more pieces held hidden dangers. She stuffed them into her apron pocket, voice steady for Grace's sake. "These are broken, honey. I'll find better ones." Grace pouted but accepted a different toy. Emily's mind raced. Manufacturing defect. In this house where everything was vetted, doubt coiled cold in her stomach. 2 days later, breakfast arrived as usual, pancakes for Grace, toast with strawberry jam for Lily. Everyone knew Lily had a severe peanut allergy. The kitchen kept strict lists. Emily set the plate before Lily and caught a faint wrong scent. She yanked it back before the girl could bite. Peanuts. Trace amounts in the jam, enough to fool a casual taste, enough to send Lily into shock. She marched downstairs, confronted Mrs. Harlan in the pantry. Glass and toys. Peanuts and jam meant for Lily, 2 times in days. "Mrs." Harlan's face remained calm, but her eyes flickered. "I'll speak to the kitchen. Carelessness happens." Twice, Emily's voice rose, then cracked. "It feels deliberate." Mrs. Harlan's gaze sharpened warningly. "What are you saying?" Emily remembered the vanished previous tutor Victor's calculating stare. She closed her mouth. Nothing. Probably oversight. But she did not believe it. From then on, she guarded like a mother wolf. Every meal she tasted first. Every new toy she inspected seams and edges. She poured drinks herself, prepared snacks with her own hands. Paranoia, perhaps, but the girls thrived under her watch cheeks, rosier laughter, freer. Jackson, now living here full-time, followed her like a shadow. His asthma eased by the new medicines Alex quietly provided. Emily's heart ached with gratitude and terror. How fragile this safety felt. Alex noticed the change. One evening he found her in the kitchen, checking Grace's cup of milk for the 3rd time. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice neutral. Emily nearly spilled it. "Making sure it's not too hot." His blue eyes bored into her, seeing too much. "What are you afraid of?" The question hung. She thought of glass shards, tainted jam, Victor's cold smile. She should tell him, but what if she was wrong? A poor employee accusing his blood brother, she would lose everything, job, home, Jackson's care. Nothing she said steadier than she felt. Just want them safe. He studied her longer, then nodded and left. Emily exhaled shakily, hating the secret she now carried. The storm arrived on a Thursday night in late October, wind-howling rain, lashing windows like angry fists. Emily read to the children in the family sitting room, when lightning flashed white and thunder cracked. Every light died. Darkness swallowed them. Grace screamed, hurling herself into Emily's lap, shaking. "It's dark. I'm scared." Emily held her tight, rubbing her back, whispering reassurance. She found Lily standing rigid beside the sofa, fists clenched, trying to be brave. "Come here, honey," Emily called softly. Lily hesitated, then leaned into her other side. Emily pulled both girls close, heart pounding but voice calm. "I'm not going anywhere. We're safe." She remembered emergency candles lit them one by one, creating a warm circle of light. Then she told a story from memory about her grandmother's house in southern Illinois summer nights, counting stars on the roof. She sang the lullaby. Slowly the girls relaxed. Grace fell asleep first. Lily's head nodded against her shoulder. The door opened silently. Emily looked up. Alex stood there, soaked from the storm, hair-plastered, dark suit clinging. His eyes found the candlelit scene, Emily cradling his daughters, and stopped. She started to rise, but he lifted a hand stay. He removed his wet coat, laid it aside, and sat on the floor beside them, close enough she felt his heat. He said nothing at first, only watched his sleeping girls, then her. "Thank you," he said at last, voice low and rough, "for being here when I couldn't." "It's my job," she whispered. "No." His gaze burned. "This is more." Silence stretched, filled by rain and candle flicker. His hand rested on the rug near hers. Fingers brushed accidental, then not. Neither moved away. They stayed all night, hands touching in soft light, children safe between them. Emily felt the line blur employee and employer, dissolving into something deeper, dangerous, warm. Alex's inner war raged fiercer. Love consumed him, passionate and terrifying. He wanted to pull her fully into his arms, promise her the world. But his world killed what it touched. The next morning, another confrontation. Emily watched from the window as Alex's car was blocked again, this time in broad daylight near the building. Rival men surrounded it, words escalating. Alex emerged calm authority, forcing space stares, locking until the others backed down. He returned unmarked but furious. Emily met him in the private hall. "You could have been hurt," she said, voice trembling. "I won't let them near you or the children," he answered, fierce. The promise wrapped around her heart like chains, comforting, binding. That afternoon a letter arrived, addressed to Emily, no return. Inside, a single photograph of Jackson playing on the rooftop, taken from a distance. On the back scrawled, "Accidents happen." Emily's world tilted. Dizziness crashed. She gripped the wall, nausea rising. Someone had watched her son, threatened him. She hid the photo, but fear rooted deep, unfairness upon unfairness. Poverty had starved her body. Now wealth's shadow threatened her child's life. That night she checked locks thrice, tasted every bite, sang the girls to sleep with shaking voice. Alex found her later on the balcony, staring at dark water. "You're frightened," he said. She turned, tears spilling. "I don't know how to protect them in your world." He stepped close, hands gentle on her shoulders. "You already are. And I'll protect all of you." Their eyes locked. The burning surge in his chest roared louder, love fierce and absolute. Emily felt it too, confusion, terror, and an answering pull she could not name. Once desperately poor, now guarded by the most powerful man she knew. The disparity tore at her soul. In the quiet wind howling around them, they stood suspended, two hearts, ripping wider, drawn inexorably, together by danger and need. Victor's shadow grew. The accidents would not stop, and the storm Emily sensed was only beginning. The storm that hit Chicago that final October night felt like the city itself was raging. Wind howled around the penthouse, rain battered the windows in furious sheets, and lightning turned the sky white over and over. Emily sat on the wide sofa in the family sitting room. Both girls curled against her, Jackson asleep on the adjoining cushion, with his nebulizer nearby. The power had failed an hour earlier, plunging the vast space into darkness broken only by the candles she had lit. Grace whimpered with every thunderclap. Lily tried to hide her fear behind a stiff upper lip. Emily held them tighter, singing softly over the storm. First the lullaby, then an old hymn her grandmother had loved. Little by little, the children's breathing slowed, bodies softening in the warm circle of candlelight. She did not hear the private elevator open. Alex entered, soaked through suit, clinging hair dark with rain. He paused in the doorway, blue eyes fixed on the scene, Emily cradling his daughters and her own son, candle flames dancing across her tired, beautiful face. Something inside him broke open completely. He removed his coat, quietly laid it aside, and crossed the room. Instead of retreating as he usually did, he lowered himself to the rug beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Emily's breath caught. "Alex." He lifted a hand, gentle. "Stay." They sat in silence as thunder rolled. His fingers found hers on the sofa, cushion, slow, deliberate. She did not pull away. Heat flared between their palms, fierce and sudden. Outside, distant fireworks began, someone celebrating early for the holiday weekend. Bursts of red and gold lighting the storm clouds. Inside, the candles flickered. Alex turned to her fully. "You're shaking." "So are you," she whispered. His eyes searched, hers tormented. "I can't keep pretending this is just gratitude." Emily's heart hammered. Confusion, fear, longing crashed together. "I'm only the tutor. I was nothing before this. You were everything," he said roughly. "Strong when you had nothing. Kind when the world wasn't." Tears welled. She had never been spoken to like this. No one had ever seen her. He leaned closer, forehead almost touching hers. "I've fought it every day. I'm dangerous, Emily. I destroy what I love. But I can't fight it anymore." The confession tore from him like a wound reopening, guilt over Sarah, terror of repeating history, overwhelming love that had ignited the first moment he saw her holding Lily. Emily's free hand rose, trembling to his cheek. "I'm terrified too. But I feel it, every time you look at me." Thunder drowned the world. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face, raw, desperate, beautiful. He closed the distance. The kiss was not gentle. It was fierce, hungry, born of weeks of restraint, shattering. His hand cupped her face, the other sliding to her waist, pulling her carefully around the sleeping children. Emily kissed him back with all the loneliness and longing she had carried for years. Poor, abandoned, powerless, now suddenly wanted by the most powerful man she had ever known. The world narrowed to heat and breath and heartbeat. Storm and fireworks faded. There was only Alex, his taste, his strength, the way he held her like something infinitely precious. When they broke apart, foreheads pressed together, both were breathing hard. "This changes everything," he whispered, voice raw. "I know," she answered, tears slipping free. They did not move far. The children slept on, unaware. Alex drew her against his side, her head on his shoulder, hands linked. They stayed like that until dawn, crept gray through the windows, storm spent. Later that week, while the children worked with their online tutor, Emily slipped into the penthouse library, a quiet room of dark wood and leather-bound books. She had begun researching Sarah's background, wanting to understand the girls' loss better to help them heal. An old family album lay on a lower shelf. She opened it carefully. Photographs of Sarah, smiling at weddings, holding newborn Lily. Then earlier pages, Sarah as a teenager beside another girl who looked eerily familiar. Emily's breath stopped. The girl was her own mother at a family reunion 20 years earlier. Handwritten notes confirmed it, distant cousins, grandmothers, sisters, separated by old feuds but reunited once. Sarah Harlan had been Emily's second cousin. The book slipped from numb fingers. Dizziness swept her. She sank into a chair, heart pounding. The girls Lily and Grace were her blood kin. Jackson played with his cousins every day and did not know. Shock, confusion, deep disorientation crashed over her. She had come here a stranger, destitute and desperate. Now she was family bound by blood to the children she already loved like her own, to the man whose kiss still burned on her lips. Tears came fast. The unfairness twisted sharper, all those years of poverty scraping for survival while blood relatives lived in unimaginable wealth. Yet fate or cruelty had brought her here exactly when they needed her most. She wept silently, shoulders shaking. Once so poor, she had walked miles in snow for discounted formula, now tied by blood and heart to a world of private elevators and armed guards. Footsteps sounded. Alex entered, pausing at the sight of her tears. "Emily," she looked up, eyes red. Wordlessly, she handed him the album open to the photograph. He studied it, face paling. Recognition dawned. "Your family. Second cousins with Sarah," she whispered. "The girls are mine too, by blood." Silence stretched heavy with meaning. Alex knelt before her, taking her hands. Torment raged, a new joy that she was tied to his daughters forever. Terror that his dangerous life now threatened his love's own kin. "It changes nothing," he said fiercely, "and everything. You were already theirs, already mine." The confession hung raw. Emily's heart tore wider. Poor girl suddenly claimed by wealth, power, and passionate love. He pulled her gently into his arms. She went willingly, face buried in his shoulder, tears soaking his shirt. He held her as though she might vanish. Inner conflict. Violent vow to protect her at any cost, even from himself. Outside, another confrontation brewed, rival cars circling the block. Alex's phone buzzed warnings. He ignored it, holding her tighter. Danger pressed closer. Victor's shadow darkened. But in that quiet library with an old album open between them, love ignited, fully passionate, unbreakable, burning brighter than any storm. Emily clung to him, poor no longer, in the only way that mattered. And Alex, for the first time in years, felt something stronger than guilt, hope. November arrived with a bite in the air, the kind that promised snow soon. Emily Carter stood in the playroom helping Lily with a school project on the Underground Railroad while Grace and Jackson colored nearby. The revelation of her blood, tied to Sarah to the girls, still echoed in her heart like a distant bell. It deepened everything, her love for the children, her fear for their safety, the burning intensity of what had ignited between her and Alex. Since the stormy night, nothing had been the same. Stolen glances across rooms, brief touches in passing hallways, late-night talks in the library, that ended with kisses fierce and desperate. Alex's love was a force, passionate, all-consuming, terrifying in its depth. He looked at her as though she were oxygen after years underwater. And Emily, once so poor she had sold her winter coat for formula, now felt cherished beyond reason. Yet danger circled closer. Alex had begun pulling away from riskier dealings, quietly preparing to shield the family. He organized a high-profile charity gala for children's hospitals, his public face a way to launder reputation, while raising real money for causes that mattered. Emily watched him plan it with grim focus, knowing it would draw eyes, including hostile ones. The night of the gala arrived crisp and clear. Alex looked devastating in black tie, fair skin, striking against the white shirt, blue eyes burning when they met hers. "You'll watch from home?" he asked, adjusting his cufflinks. Emily nodded, throat tight. "With the kids. Be safe." He cupped her face gently. "I'll be back before you miss me." The kiss he gave her was fierce, lingering a promise. Emily gathered the children in the family room television, tuned to the live broadcast. The ballroom glittered crystal chandeliers, elegant gowns, Chicago's elite smiling for cameras. Alex took the stage, voice steady as he spoke of lost mothers, sick children, second chances. The crowd applauded. Then it happened. A sharp crack amplified through microphones. Alex staggered on stage, hand clutching his chest. Crimson bloomed across white shirt. Chaos erupted. Screams. People diving for cover. Cameras shaking. Emily's world stopped. She stared at the screen, numb. The room spun. Dizziness crashed over her like a wave. She gripped the sofa, knees buckling, pain shooting through her chest as though the bullet had struck her too. "No," she whispered. Then louder, No Grace began crying. Lily froze, eyes wide with old terror. Jackson wailed. On screen, security swarmed. Paramedics rushed the stage. The broadcaster's voice shook. Shots fired. "Mr. Alexander Harlan has been hit. Condition unknown." Emily collapsed to the rug, pulling the children into her arms, rocking them as sobs tore from her throat. The unfairness crushed her. Finally loved, finally safe, only to lose him. Once starving in the cold, now warm in luxury, yet losing the man who had given her everything. News crawled across the screen. Assassin fled. Police investigating. Harlan rushed to hospital. Hours blurred. Mrs. Harlan took the children to bed, sedated by the doctor's call-in order. Emily sat alone in the dim library, wrapped in Alex's forgotten coat, staring at nothing. Tears fell silently. Memories assaulted her. His first gentle touch, the stormy kiss, the vow to protect them. Victor arrived near midnight, face grave, suit impeccable. "Terrible tragedy," he said, voice smooth. "I'll handle things now. The girls will need stability." Emily stood, legs unsteady. "I'll care for them." Victor's dark eyes assessed her. "Your staff, Emily. Blood family decides." The word blood struck like a slap. She was Blood, Sarah's cousin. But Victor did not know. "You can stay temporarily," he allowed. "But decisions are mine now." He left, taking command of staff security. Guards loyal to Alex were reassigned overnight. Victor moved into a guest suite. Emily lay awake, heart shredded. Alex gone. The love that had ignited so fiercely snuffed out on a stage for all to see. The next days passed in fog. News confirmed Alexander Harlan pronounced dead at hospital. Private funeral pending. Victor gave interviews, voice somber, eyes calculating. Emily moved through routines, mechanically feeding children who barely ate, singing lullabies through tears. Lily withdrew completely. Grace clung constantly. Jackson asked for Mr. Alex with confused grief. One afternoon, alone in the garden, Emily pressed a hand to her stomach. Nausea had plagued her for days. A quiet trip to the pharmacy, a test taken in secret. Positive. She was pregnant. The discovery shattered her anew. She sank to the cold stone bench, sobs racking her thin frame. Alex's child growing inside the body that had once starved for lack of money. Joy and grief collided violently. She would raise this baby alone, poor again, in every way that mattered, protecting 4 children from a man who now controlled their future. Victor summoned her that evening. "The girls need continuity," he said, seated behind Alex's desk. "But staff changes are coming. Pack your things by week's end." Horror flooded her. "You can't separate them from me." "I'm staff," he finished coldly. Grievable but replaceable. He slid papers across non-disclosure agreements, severance. Enough money to vanish quietly. Emily stared, world tilting again. Dizziness, numbness. The unfairness numbed her mind, finally family by blood and love now cast out penniless with 4 children to protect one still unknown. She signed nothing. I won't leave them. Victor's smile chilled. You will, or accidents happen. The threat echoed the earlier photo of Jackson. That night, Emily held the children close, whispering promises through tears. She would fight. For Lily and Grace, her cousins. For Jackson, for the unborn life Alex had left behind. In the quiet, grief and love burned together, passionate, fierce, refusing to die. Alex's death had torn her world apart. But something told her in the deepest part of her breaking heart that the story was not over. Victor's shadow ruled the penthouse now. Danger pressed from every side. And Emily, once desperately poor, now carrying a powerful man's child, stood alone against it, heart ripping wider with every breath. The weeks following Alex's death blurred into a gray nightmare. November wind rattled the penthouse windows, but inside the air felt colder than any winter Emily had endured in her old life. Victor Harlan ruled now, quiet commands to staff new guards at every door paper sign that transferred guardianship of Lily and Grace to him. Emily watched helplessly as the world Alex had built shifted into enemy hands. She had not left. Not yet. Victor allowed her to stay for the children's sake. But his dark eyes watched her, constantly calculating. Emily moved through days like a ghost, preparing meals. The girls barely touched, reading stories in a voice that cracked, holding them through nightmares that came nightly now. Jackson sensed the wrongness. "Where's Mr.?" Alex, he asked each morning, small face confused. Emily held him tighter, whispering lies about business trips, tears burning her throat. The pregnancy made everything sharper. Morning sickness struck without warning. She hid in bathrooms, retching quietly so no one heard. Her body, once thin from hunger, now changed in secret, carrying Alex's child while mourning him. The irony tore at her, finally able to eat whatever she wanted, yet food tasted like ash. Once so poor, she had diluted formula to make it last, now surrounded by luxury she could not enjoy because grief and fear consumed her. Victor summoned her again one evening. He sat behind Alex's desk, fingers steepled. "Time to finalize arrangements," he said smoothly. "The girls will move to my estate upstate. Private tutors there. You'll receive generous severance." Emily stood before him, hands clasped to hide trembling. "They need me. Lily's nightmares. Grace won't sleep without. They'll adjust." His smile did not reach his eyes. "You've done well, Emily. But blood decides blood." She lifted her chin, voice soft but steady. "I'm blood too. Sarah was my cousin." Victor's expression flickered surprise, then irritation. Distant. Irrelevant. "It's not irrelevant to them. Or to me." He leaned forward. "Pack by Friday, or I'll have security escort you." The threat hung. Emily left the office, dizzy world tilting. She pressed a hand to the wall, nausea and terror crashing together. Once powerless and poor, now powerless in wealth, about to lose the children she loved, the home that had saved her with Alex's baby growing inside her and no way to fight. That night she sat in the nursery, rocking Grace Lily, curled on the rug with a book she wasn't reading, Jackson asleep nearby. Tears slipped silently down Emily's cheeks. The unfairness crushed her. Alex gone, Victor winning 4 children, 3 she had birthed or bonded with by blood, 1 still unborn, about to be torn apart. She whispered promises into Grace's hair. "I won't leave you." Somehow. But how? She had no money of her own, no power. Victor controlled everything. A soft knock sounded. Ryan, the bodyguard who had always been kindest, stood in the doorway, face troubled. "Miss Emily, can we talk?" She followed him to the staff corridor, heart pounding. He glanced around, voice low. "Mr. Harlan, Alex, he's alive." The words struck like lightning. Emily swayed, gripping the wall. Dizziness overwhelmed. Black spots danced in her vision. What Ryan steadied her elbow. Staged. Bulletproof vest, blood pack. Loyal doctors signed the certificate. He's been underground, cutting Victor's support one by one. Hope and horror collided. Tears flooded instantly. Why didn't he? Too risky. Victor had to believe it. Show his hand. Emily pressed a hand to her mouth, sobs shaking her. Alive. Alex alive. The grief that had shredded her heart reversed into blinding joy, then fresh torment. He had let her suffer, let the children suffer. Ryan's eyes filled with guilt. There's more. Victor's planning to move the girls tomorrow night. Private flight. Terror spiked. "I won't let him." "You can't stop him alone." Ryan hesitated. "But I can help you leave tonight." "With the kids." Emily stared, world spinning again. "Run. With 3 children and pregnant. We're safe house, Alex prepared. In Wisconsin. He'll meet you there when it's clear." The decision tore at her. Stay and lose them to Victor, or flee into the unknown with the children she loved. She nodded, tears streaming. Yes, the escape unfolded in whispers. Ryan disabled cameras, packed small bags. Emily dressed the sleepy children, explaining in soft lies about an adventure. Lily sensed the truth, eyes wide but trusting Emily completely. Grace clung to her stuffed eagle. Jackson held his nebulizer like a toy. They slipped out a service exit at 2 a.m. into Ryan's unmarked car. Chicago streets were empty, wind bitter. Emily sat in back, children huddled against her, heart pounding with every red light. Halfway to the highway, headlights flared behind, Victor's men alerted somehow. Ryan swore under his breath, accelerating. A chase began, tense, terrifying. Cars weaved through traffic, cutting alleys. Ryan's driving kept distance, but fear clawed Emily's chest. One pursuing car pulled alongside, window lowering. A warning shot cracked into the air. The children screamed. Emily shielded them, body shaking violently. Memories of poverty's helplessness surged, now magnified by danger she could not fight. Ryan took a sharp turn, losing them temporarily in side streets. We're almost to the train station switch. The plan abandoned the car aboard a late-night Amtrak North blend into passengers. They made it running through the cavernous station boarding just as doors closed. Emily collapsed into seats, children curled in her lap, tears silent. As the train pulled from Chicago, city lights fading, Emily pressed a hand to her stomach. Alive? Alex alive. But the cost, the terror, the separation ripped her heart wider. Ryan sat opposite, face grim. He wanted you safe above everything. Emily nodded, numb. Once so poor she had walked miles for food stamps, now fleeing in the night with 3 children and a 4th on the way, protected by a man who had faked death to save them. The train rocked north through darkness. Children slept fitfully against her. Emily stared out at passing towns, grief and love burning together, intense, passionate, unbreakable. Victor would hunt them. Danger remained. But Alex was coming, and for the first time since the gala, hope flickered, fragile, fierce, alive. Emily alone against the storm, carrying their future in her womb and in her arms. The train rattled north through the dark wheels, clicking like a heartbeat. Emily Carter sat huddled with the 3 children in the dim coach car coats, pulled tight against the chill seeping through the windows. Lily leaned against her side, silent and watchful. Grace slept fitfully on her lap, clutching the stuffed bald eagle. Jackson curled into her other arm, nebulizer case on the floor like a small suitcase. Ryan sat across the aisle, eyes scanning every stop. Emily's hand rested protectively on her stomach, where Alex's child grew in secret. Grief and hope warred inside her, violent tearing. Alex alive. The words still felt unreal. All those nights sobbing into his coat, believing him gone while he watched from shadows. Anger flickered beneath relief, but love burned hotter, passionate and fierce. They changed trains twice, small stations in the night, Ryan, guiding them quickly. By dawn, they reached a quiet town in southern Wisconsin. A nondescript car waited, driven by a man Emily did not know. Hours more on winding back roads, past frozen fields and bare trees, until the car turned onto a gravel drive beside a dark lake. The safe house was a sprawling lakefront home, wood and stone wraparound porch windows reflecting gray sky. Warm lights glowed inside. Ryan cut the engine. This is it. He'll be here soon. Emily's legs shook as she helped the children out. Cold wind whipped off the water. She pulled Jackson's hood up, heart pounding. The door opened before they reached it. Alex. He stood in the doorway, taller and more real than memory, fair-skinned, blue eyes locked on her face, drawn with exhaustion and something raw. Alive. Emily froze on the porch step. The world tilted. Dizziness crashed over her. Tears flooded instantly. She swayed, clutching Grace's hand for balance. Alex crossed the distance in 3 strides. He dropped to his knees before her arms wrapping around her and the children in one desperate embrace. Emily, he whispered, voice breaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sobs tore from her throat. She clung to him, fingers digging into his coat, face buried in his shoulder. The children pressed in, confused but sensing safety. Lily's small hand touched his back. Grace reached for him. Jackson stared wide-eyed. He held them all, body shaking. Guilt and remorse raged anew, violent, consuming. He had let her grieve, let the children suffer to draw Victor out. Necessary but unforgivable. Love burned hotter than ever, passionate, explosive, demanding he never let go again. Inside, warmth enveloped them, crackling fireplace, soft rugs, simple but comfortable rooms. Ryan discreetly withdrew, with the driver leaving them alone. Alex carried sleeping Grace to a bedroom, Emily guiding Lily and Jackson. When the children were settled, exhausted, finally safe, he led Emily to the wide living room overlooking the lake. She stood before the fire, arms wrapped around herself, tears still falling. How could you let me think? Her voice cracked. He stepped close, hands gentle on her shoulders. I hated every second, but Victor had to believe it completely. He'd have killed you all otherwise. His eyes searched hers, tormented. I watched when I could. Every report of you holding them through nightmares. It killed me. Emily's heart tore wider. I thought I'd lost you. Everything good gone again. He pulled her into his arms. Never again. The kiss began. Soft apology, reassurance then ignited. Weeks of grief and longing exploded. His hands framed her face, then slid to her waist, pulling her close. Emily kissed him back fiercely, fingers tangling in his hair, body pressing to his as though to prove he was real. They sank to the rug before the fire lost in each other, passionate, intense, burning away the pain. Whispers of love, promises, tears mingling. Later, lying tangled in a soft blanket, firelight dancing across their skin, Emily pressed a trembling hand to her stomach. There's something I need to tell you. Alex stilled, blue eyes locking on hers. I'm pregnant. Silence, then his face crumpled. Joy, awe, fresh guilt crashed over him. He pressed his forehead to hers, tears falling. Our child, he whispered, voice raw. I almost lost you both. He laid a reverent hand over her shoulders, shaking. The man who commanded Chicago's shadows wept openly for the family he had nearly destroyed, for the miracle now growing. Emily held him her own, tears falling. Once so poor she had gone days without heat, now cradled by the man who loved her beyond reason, father of her unborn child. The reunion stretched through the night, talking, touching, healing in quiet, condensed stillness. Alex confessed every detail, the staged shooting, loyal allies feeding false information, systematically dismantling Victor's network. He's coming, Alex said, finally, voice hardening. He knows I'm alive now. He'll come for the children, for you. Emily's heart stuttered, fear rising anew. Alex cupped her face. This ends at the old lighthouse. Tomorrow night, I'll finish it. Horror flooded her. You can't risk I have to. For all of us. The next day passed in fragile calm, children, exploring the snowy yard, building a lopsided snowman, laughter echoing over the lake. Emily watched from the porch, hand on her stomach, love and dread warring. Dusk fell. Alex prepared quietly calls to loyal men checking equipment. He kissed each child goodbye, then Emily, long, fierce. I'll come back, he vowed. She clung to him, tears falling. You better. The confrontation unfolded at the abandoned Lake Michigan lighthouse, crumbling stone waves crashing below. Victor arrived with armed men, believing he held advantage. Alex waited with his own. Words were sharp, accusations flying. Victor admitted everything, orchestrating Sarah's death, the gala shooting plans to eliminate heirs. Then chaos, loyal forces swarming Victor's men, overwhelmed. Victor and Alex faced alone on the windy platform. Victor lunged desperate. A brutal struggle, fists, grapples, edges of the platform crumbling. Alex gained control, pinning his brother. You took Sarah, Alex roared. You tried to take them all. Victor laughed madly. You were always weak. Alex's final blow ended it. Victor fell still. When Alex returned to the lake house at dawn, bruised, bloodied, but whole, Emily waited on the porch, children asleep inside. She ran to him. He caught her, lifting her off her feet, kiss explosive, relief, love, triumph. They held each other as snow began to fall, hearts finally knitting together. Victor gone. Danger ended. In the quiet aftermath, love burned brighter, passionate, intense, eternal. Emily, once desperately poor, now forever protected, pressed close to the man who had risked everything for her. Alex held her like salvation, remorse finally easing under joy. Their family blended, chosen, blood and heart was safe. And the child growing inside her was proof, from darkest storm light enduring. Spring arrived softly in northern Wisconsin, melting snow into quiet streams that fed the lake beside the house. 6 months had passed since the night at the lighthouse. Emily Harlan, once Emily Carter, stood on the wide porch watching the children play in the yard. Lily, now 9, laughed as she kicked a soccer ball to Jackson, 5, and breathless with joy. Grace, 6, chased them with her stuffed bald eagle flapping like wings. The new baby Benjamin Alexander Harlan slept peacefully in a bassinet beside her tiny fist curled near his cheek. Emily's hand rested on the gentle swell that had become her rounded belly months ago. She was no longer thin. Her cheeks held color, her body nourished by love and safety. Yet memories of poverty lingered nights, when wind howled through cracked windows, when she had counted coins for bread, when hope felt like a cruel joke. Those memories made this moment sharper, sweeter. Alex stepped behind her arms, circling her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. His hands, once clenched in torment, now lay gentle over hers. They're happy, he whispered. Because of you, she answered softly. He turned her slowly, blue eyes searching hers. Because of us. The kiss began tender, then deepened, passionate, intense, explosive, in the way only they understood. Years of suppressed longing, grief, and triumph poured into it. His fingers threaded through her hair. Hers clutched his shirt. Even after months of marriage, every touch felt like the first burning, all-consuming. They had married quietly in January, snow falling around the small lakeside chapel. Alex had dissolved the last dangerous ties, transferring power to trusted allies who promised cleaner paths. Wealth remained, investments, properties, security, but the shadows receded. He woke some nights still guilt gnawing over Sarah over risks taken. But Emily's presence soothed the violent conflict inside him, her love a steady light. Inside the house was warm and lived in. Children's drawings on the refrigerator, baseball gloves by the door, books scattered on soft rugs. No penthouse marble, no armed guards at every corner, just home. Alex had paid for Jackson's ongoing care, ensured Lily and Grace saw gentle counselors. He coached Little League on weekends, taught the girls to fish, read bedtime stories with voices for every character. The powerful man who once commanded fear now knelt to tie tiny shoelaces, remorse finally easing under joy. Emily watched him sometimes and felt her heart tear open anew, not with pain now, but with overwhelming gratitude. She who had once walked miles in snow for discounted medicine now stood wrapped in love that crossed every divide, wealth and poverty, past and future, grief and hope. One evening in late spring, they gathered for a simple barbecue on the porch, hamburgers sizzling, corn on the cob, apple pie cooling on the rail. The children ate with messy hands, laughing over spilled ketchup. Alex caught Emily's eye across the table, love blazing fierce and open. Later, when the kids slept, they walked to the lake's edge. Moonlight silvered the water. Alex pulled her close. "I was a man drowning," he said quietly. "Power, guilt, fear. You pulled me out." Emily pressed her palm to his chest. "And you gave me a life I never dared dream." Their kiss was slow this time, deep, passionate, sealing every promise. Love that had ignited in storm now burned steady, intense, unbreakable. Emily thought often of the journey from desperate poverty, cold nights, empty cupboards, powerless against illness, to this abundant life. Wealth had not bought happiness. Love had. Love that saw no color, no status, only hearts needing each other. Alex carried similar knowledge. True power lay not in control, but in protecting what mattered. Remorse had taught him compassion. Love had given him purpose. Life lessons settled gently into their days. Knowledge that family was chosen, not merely born. Knowledge that kindness healed deeper than money. Knowledge that courage grew in quiet acts. Emily tasting food for danger, singing through storms, fleeing into night with 3 children. Knowledge that redemption came through sacrifice. Knowledge that love fierce and patient could rebuild shattered worlds. Education in forgiveness. Alex forgiving himself. Education in trust. Lily smiling freely again. Education in gratitude. Emily savoring every warm meal. Education in resilience. Jackson running without wheezing. Education in joy. Grace dancing in rain puddles. These lessons shaped them daily, gentle and profound. As stars scattered overhead, Alex held Emily close. Wealth and poverty could not separate true love and compassion. Skin color, past mistakes, old wounds, none stood against hearts that chose each other. They walked back to the house hand in hand, porch light glowing welcome. This story teaches us that love can bloom in unexpected places, crossing every divide. Courage is acting despite fear. True family is built on choice and sacrifice, not only blood. Knowledge reminds us compassion changes lives. Knowledge shows second chances exist. Knowledge proves kindness costs nothing, yet gives everything. Knowledge reveals forgiveness frees the giver most. Knowledge affirms love given freely returns multiplied. Lesson after lesson, education in humanity's best truths. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel Alex Truths, like this video, and share it with those you love. We post engaging stories every day. How did this story make you feel? Does it connect to moments in your own life? Times when love overcame hardship? When compassion bridged impossible gaps? Please leave a comment below and share your deepest emotions. We read every one and treasure hearing from your hearts. Thank you for staying until the end. We wish you good health, a joyful life, and peace in every day. See you in the next video. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.